Chapter 2. This is going to cover myology and levers. Myology, if we broke it into its word parts, we would get myo, which means muscle. Logy means study of, so myology translates to the study of muscles. Getting to the basics of a muscle and what makes up a muscle, we're going to do a quick little sketch here of kind of a cartoon classic version of a muscle you've probably seen of before this course. We'll make the red part in the middle. This part that I'm coloring red and making these lines, which are those contractile fibers, that section is called a muscle belly. And on either side of the muscle belly, we have a tendon. And what a tendon does is it connects a muscle to a bone. When you get to tissues in your lecture, you'll get a little more in depth of what makes up a tendon and our next structure, which is a ligament. But for us, we're not really going to worry so much about the tissue layer. A ligament is going to connect a bone to a bone. So that's kind of the difference between a tendon and a ligament. Tendons will connect muscle to bone, whereas a ligament is going to connect a bone to a bone. We also have a structure called an aponeurosis. So kind of a silly little word there, but an aponeurosis is just a tendon that is going to be a large sheet, and it's just going to spread the tension out. And so you can kind of think of the difference between a tendon and an aponeurosis is that a tendon is almost like a rope, whereas an aponeurosis would be like a bed sheet. So it just makes it a broad area so that tension can be spread out through the whole thing. Also with an origin, this is going to be the part of the muscle that doesn't move when the muscle contracts. So when a muscle contracts, it gets shorter. And so only one side is going to be able to move to accomplish any kind of movement. If they both got shorter, then no kind of movement is going to happen. The bones are going to get closer together. So the origin is going to be the part of the muscle that doesn't actually contract. The insertion is going to be the area of the muscle that actually does contract. So it's going to get shorter and it's going to move closer towards the origin. The action is just the basic movement that the muscle accomplishes by contracting. And then also an innervation. That's just a fancy way of saying what is the name of the nerve that tells this muscle what to do. That's all the innervation is. Now going off some basic actions, our first one is called flexion. Flexion is going to be actually causing a joint angle to get smaller. So you've probably heard of flexing your biceps. And so that goes from having a somewhat straight arm to causing it to get really short. And flexing your arms, actually going to be causing your elbow joint, the angle to get smaller as you bring your hand closer to the ceiling. The opposite of flexion is going to be extension. So that's going to make the joint angle larger. And so extension of your forearm is going to be straightening your arm out. So opposite of flexing. Abduction, and be really careful on that spelling there. Abduction is going to be any kind of movement away from the center of your body. So away from the midline. So abduction would be like going from anatomical position and moving your arms up to the ceiling. So they move away from the center of your body. That is called abduction, abduction. The opposite of this movement is called adduction. So if you'll notice those first three letters, ADD, is telling you it's adding towards the body. So it's going to be adding to it. And so this is going to be movement of a body part closer to the midline or towards the center of the body.